Welcome back to Barbecue and Bottles, and on today's episode, we're going to be taking you through a steak experiment where we compare a fresh steak versus a frozen steak. We're going to compare the juiciness, the tenderness, just the overall flavor profile, how it sears on the grill. So if you're into that kind of thing, stick with us. So for today's experiment, we've got two beautiful ribeyes here. These were grass-fed, grain-finished, and the grain finish on your steaks really gives it that beautiful intermuscular fat that we're looking for. And that fat is really what gives these steaks flavor. So this one was fresh. We've just had it in the fridge in butcher's paper. This one was frozen, and we took it out of our freezer, and we were in a bit of a rush to de-thaw it. So the process for really quickly de-thawing a steak, you put it in a bowl full of room temperature water, and then just drizzle a little bit of room temperature water down into that bowl, and you just let your steak sit there submerged in the water. It took us maybe half an hour, and this is just perfectly thawed at this point. So we're gonna get these seasoned up. Our first step, just getting this guy out of the package. We'll get these steaks dried with paper towel on both sides. Perfect. And then we'll season them generously here with some kosher salt. Now, this is just Diamond Crystal kosher salt, our favorite go-to here. We're gonna season these for an hour before we hit the grill, and that'll allow the steak to fully absorb all this salt, but also it'll allow the steak to come up to room temperature, or at least the surface to come up to room temp. All right, now we'll get the sides here. Just pick up some of that salt that's on the cutting board. Beautiful. Now we'll let these rest for an hour. In the meantime, once we're closer to that hour mark, we'll fire up the grill. So we're just gonna get the grill turned on. We're about 15 minutes away from actually getting ready to sear our steaks. So this is about the time you wanna fire up and let your grill get up to temp. We've got a little mess here left on the grill from our last cook, so we're just gonna use our grill floss here. This is a really cool tool, and you can just clean it off like that. It's got 4 different sized attachments like this, so depending on whatever grill size or grates you actually have in the gauge of those rungs, you can just switch these out accordingly. And it works great. It gets the top, and you can spin it around and get the bottom of your grates too. So we'll put a link in the description down below to this grill floss here. It doesn't leave behind any metal brush wires like some of the other grill grate cleaners, and it's only about 30 bucks. The thing's stainless steel, really durable, it'll last forever. Anyway, now that we've got the cleaning all done up here, we're just gonna close down the hood of our grill and let this get up to temp. I'm really excited to see how this experiment turns out. We just got a new deep freeze. It's almost totally empty. There was only this ribeye and a little piece of brisket, but otherwise we've got loads of room in there for beef. So if you've got any suggestions on cuts we ought to load into our freezer, let us know. So we've got the grill ripping hot here. We've even got the middle sear station burner going here, and the temperature is up to 600. So now we're gonna put the ribeyes right down in the middle of the sear station and get these cooking. So at first, we're gonna grill these off at a ripping hot temperature here. We'll do 90 seconds, we'll turn them 90 degrees, we'll flip them, let them go another 90 seconds, and then turn them 90 degrees, and that should give us the grill marks that we're looking for. Then once we've done that, we'll move them over to the side, turn the burner temperatures down, and just let them cook away indirect until we hit our final internal temp of 128 to 130, which is the medium rare outcome that we're looking for. All right, now we'll turn these steaks 90 degrees. Those flames are coming up because some of the fat's rendering off, hitting the flavorizer bars, and just vaporizing into deliciousness. All right, now we'll flip the steaks over. Look, we've got those beautiful hash marks. We'll do the same on the other side. Now we'll spin these 90 degrees. All right, now we're gonna move these guys over to the side. We'll turn off the burners on this side of the grill. Now we'll drop the temperature on this to somewhere between 225 to 250 and just let these steaks sear out until we hit an internal temp of 128 to 130, which is the medium rare temperature that we're looking for. So the top steak here is our frozen steak. This was the fresh steak. Now the theory behind a fresh steak being better than a frozen steak is potentially the freezing process. Because muscle is about 70% moisture, you have the moisture within the steak actually turn into ice crystals if you freeze it slowly, and that can destroy the overall texture to the steak and make it a little bit more mushy. So let's just go in here and see if we can tell any difference on the grill before we get into the taste test and the texture. So if you look at the center of the frozen steak, there seems to be a little bit more pooling of moisture just around the eye of the ribeye. I don't know if that's because it's frozen or not, but it's just an interesting observation that differs from the fresh steak. Now we're just gonna check in on the temps on the steaks here. Just go in with our instant read thermometer. Got 124, so that's got a little ways to go. This one we're reading 129, so perfect. That steak can come off. And this is the steak that was in the freezer frozen. So we'll give this guy another minute here on the grill, and then we'll take them both inside to rest. All right, we've had these steaks in resting for about 10 minutes now, and we've done them untented. So we don't put aluminum foil over the top. We just found that really erodes or steams away the crust that we've worked hard to form on the grill here. And we've got these beautiful crosshatch marks on both of these steaks. So this is the steak that was frozen, and our first experiment is just gonna be cutting into these and seeing if across the middle there was any difference in the doneness of the steak. So looking at both of these, going in, they're both perfect wall-to-wall medium rares. So looking at both of these, you know, I don't really notice any difference between the frozen steak versus the fresh steak. Now the appearance of the steak between both of these, we've got a very similar crosshatch marking on both of the steaks we were able to accomplish. The overall crust looks really similar, so I don't think there's any difference there. Now we're gonna actually do a taste test. So we're just gonna slice out a little piece right through the middle here. Now, we'll cut off a piece of steak from each, very similar size, both with the fat cap, and I'll try the frozen steak first. That was good, no complaints. I don't detect much of a difference in the texture at this point, but when we put it up against the fresh steak, we'll really be able to tell. And now for the fresh steak. Wow, that's wonderful as well. And to be honest, I don't notice a huge difference. When you look at the appearance of the steaks here, it looks like maybe the actual structure of this steak has broken down a little bit more than this one. You can see more contiguous muscle fibers. This one's a little bit more mayhem. So maybe there's something to the fact that when you freeze steak, there's a huge portion of moisture that just turns into water crystals that then destroy the muscle fiber and the cell structures. To be honest, I'm not detecting a really big difference between the two. And frankly, that's fantastic. It's a lot easier to buy giant pieces of beef, cut them down into smaller steaks and throw them in your freezer. That's a lot cheaper. Or there's a lot of great butchers online that deliver to your house, but they only deliver frozen. You know, if you're really only noticing a marginal difference, or in this case, I'm not really noticing any difference, then I think that's a fantastic outcome. And I know I'm pumped because now I'm gonna go get half a cow and load up that freezer. So if you like this video, give us a like below, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.